so that we all can learn, grow, and move towards our shared goals. Before we sort of kickstart this session, would love to share with you the ethos of having curated this session based on our experiences and learnings. Over the last 5 years of 10 to 19's implementation, we realized this need for us to keep an intentional focus, to be more accountable, maintain systems, and measure our impact a lot more tangibly as a field catalyzer. Given there were sort of limited reference models existing that focused on collaborative ways of working, measurement of norm change through participatory approaches, and looking at outcomes for youth in a holistic manner and not merely at a population level and siloed. We as a sector, I think, struggled in, there were a lot of challenges with that we are still learning and unlearning on what it means to have meaningful MEL and what it looks like for all of us within distinct spaces that we all hold in the sector. And I truly believe that conversations like this are important to give us this space to deconstruct, question, align, and hopefully move us ahead in this space of monitoring and evaluation. Our journey within measurement, evaluation, learning, and technology, or MELT as we call it internally, is still really a work in progress and has been a group effort so far. So I would like to just take a minute to really quickly show our gratitude and thank our community of practice, our partners, funders, young people, and field experts who've been really, really patient, kind with their time and participation and supported us through this journey. Lastly, but definitely not the least, would like to extend a really big thank you to one of our long-standing champions and guide in this journey so far, Asha Pai, who is moderating this discussion. With that backdrop as well, would like to sort of welcome our moderator for the day, Asha Pai, to take the session forward. Asha has been a consultant with Dasra on MEL and is also the co-chair of the board of directors in Asia for Empower. She has over 20 years of experience in sector issues and key issues of SRHR and gender equity. I can go on, but I will quickly move on and hand it over to Asha. Over to you, Asha.
Thank you so much, Suvira. Great to see everybody. Great to see all the participation happening here. And we are so fortunate to have an excellent panel for you today to discuss how to involve communities in the MEL process. So our panelists are working across all sorts of different sectors and many different types of roles, directly working with programming or in very close collaboration with social purpose organizations. So you can see their full bios. So I'll just be giving brief introductions because we don't have a lot of time, but please do take a look at their bios and you'll be very impressed to see what they've all been doing. So what we're going to do is have 3 rounds of questions for our panelists, and I'm just going to dive right in. So I'll introduce very briefly each panelist just before I ask them a question, and we are ready to go. So my first question is for Anusha. Anusha Chandrasekaran is the Senior Program Manager for Communications at Praxis. She's a journalist by training, and she's been with Praxis for over 10 years and been working very deep in community participation on some of the most entrenched social issues of our time. So we're really pleased to have you here, Anusha. And I want to start the questions with, some real fundamentals. Tell us, from your perspective, what does it mean to involve communities in the MEL process? And what are the benefits and the challenges?
Sure. Thank you, Asha. It's a good opportunity to be here and speak with all of you. And I'll just quickly jump into the question. So when we're talking about MEL, we are talking about measuring outcomes. We are trying to understand how progress of various projects is moving. We're trying to understand what roadblocks there are, and we're trying to see how this learning can contribute towards us making the journey more successful and sustainable. And in this process, if we believe that communities are not just beneficiaries or recipients of whatever project we have in mind, then we must acknowledge that they should also be part of the MEL. Because unless there is an ownership from the communities, long-term sustainability is almost difficult and almost impossible to achieve. It is important because communities themselves are experts of their own lived experience. They have a lot of experiences that they bring to the table as part of this learning. And for us as implementers, as researchers, the onus is actually on us on how we can make MEL most participatory. It is our onus on how we can collaborate. For example, are we open to create an shared theory of change? Are we open to brainstorm and collectively evolve indicators as part of various measuring frameworks? What kind of participation are we looking at? Is it only at the stage of development? Is it at the stage of collecting the data? Is it also at the stage of using the data after it has been collected? So all this goes into how communities can be involved as part of a MEL process. Like even as I'm speaking, it doesn't sound very easy, and I'm sure it is not, because it comes with a number of challenges. There are challenges inbuilt within the various hierarchies that are already existing in a process like this. These hierarchies are that are already in place because of the various social locations we all are from. The knowledge hierarchies are there. There are also things related to caste, gender, patriarchy. All these come into the picture, and it is how we are going to collectively break down these hierarchies to make a collective learning process possible. There has to be an investment of time and effort, because once that investment of time and effort is made at the very beginning, there will be this process will be something that will reap long-term benefits, because then it will not be the onus of the organization, onus of a donor, onus of an agency in bringing about change, but communities themselves will be part of the change that we are visioning. It will be their change, and they will be more cued into achieving it. And I think somewhere, given all these, one of the most important aspects or the most important challenges is the commitment also. And the commitment not just for organizations themselves, but also for the community to be involved in a MEL process. Because often there are challenges with the community also where they see themselves as recipients. It is important to break that divide and break into that mindset to see how communities also see themselves as co-creators of and co-learners as part of this MEL journey. I think that's something and it is important to do that by breaking down jargons. It is important to look at the language that we use while we are creating any of these frameworks when we are talking about MEL with community. It is important to have their buy-in at every stage.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. You're saying amazing things, and we are going to come back to you, but I do want to keep the discussion moving along and giving everyone a couple of minutes on their responses for each thing. But you've set up this conversation really well, and I really like what you said about, for now, the onus is on us, but we need to transfer that onus and really make it something that's about ownership communities. And so with that, my next question is to Verinder. So I'd like to introduce Verinder Gambhir, who's the Director of Research at BBC Media. She's worked across multiple social issues as well, covering research. She worked in the corporate sector, in CSR and consultancy, and she has had a very strong theme running through all of it of data-driven communication solutions. So let's get into it with Verinder. Verinder, when we're doing the MEL process and approaches, how do we ensure that community voices stay at the center and that we build this ownership?
Thanks, Asha. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm just very happy that we're having this week dedicated to MEL evaluation. So, and great to hear also from Anusha where she spoke about how it's important to de-jargonize the language. So, I think completely agreeing with what Anusha also said, that the community voices, of course, are very important, right? Not just to ensure that our program is relevant and responsive to the community, but I think also to ensure that it's accountable to the needs and expectations of the community, right? So, and one way to ensure that is to always keep these voices at the center and build ownership around it. And one way to do that is using participatory approaches. to M&E. And this, of course, means that, the goals and indicators of the program and the tools of M&E, they're all informed by the voices of the community. And, we're making that at every point of time, a part of our decision-making process. Now, it's easy said than done, but I think a lot of it is, I think starts when we're doing our secondary research and, expert viewpoints. I think that's when we start building in, identifying the right community to bring in, the right mapping of the community. I think you start from that angle. And then I think it's very important to bring in to ensure the adequate representation from the community, participation of diverse groups. And it's not just, your own primary target group or the community. I think when we say community, we have to also ensure we're going beyond and understanding the norms prevalent in the community. And that's when it's very important to also think of the enabling environment of the primary target group that we might be focusing on. And I think, so just to take an example from our work at BBC Media Action, while we were creating content which was meant for self-help group women in, Madhya Pradesh, we also did check the content very much with, whether it's accepted with the families, with the gatekeepers of, digital adoption within, these women. So we spoke to families, we spoke to the community, we spoke to their husbands, mother-in-laws. So that's just one way of ensuring that the definition of the community itself is slightly broader to include these norms. And the other thing we do is we adopt a very human-centric approach, right? So a range of different methods to even ensure that the voices of the community come in, not in a socially desirable construct, but you're also getting into, the real issues that are faced by them, the perceptions that they have. You're going beyond the surface level data and getting non-socially desirable, non-political answers, really, right? Politically correct answers. So again, just to give an example here, we've in one of our projects where we were trying to understand the perceptions of people towards waste pickers in Bangalore, we used a metaphorization technique where, we used aids like pictures and graphics to really get into the actual mindset of our audiences without them feeling judged, right? It was really about making them feel very comfortable in the environment, but also at the same time, understand the inherent stigma and discrimination, because it was really about understanding that to then, inform the program and work on these perceptions of waste pickers. So I think...
Sorry, I'm going to have to...
Sure. I was just going to end by saying that it's important to have research as part of all your different, stages of program. Thanks.
Oh, thank you for that, because I think sometimes we think of MEL as just being, certain kinds of research or surveys, and you're bringing us into a whole other world of all these techniques that we can really find out what people are really thinking and feeling. So that's been really helpful. And now what I want to do now is go specifically and look at the participation of young people. And so my next question is for Saurav. Saurav Saktel is a youth champion. He's a youth representative for the Youth Advisory Council for 10to19's. And he's got a few other very exciting roles, which I'll let him explain. So, Saurav, my question for you is, this whole thing is about like going to people where they are and hearing their perspectives. So, in the MEL process, if we want to do this for young people, how do we reach young people?
So, well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saurav, and I am a founder and director of Engaging in Creating, and also a founder and director of The Samajik News. At the same time, also a part and a member of Kebol and advisory board member. So, coming to the question, basically, thank you, Asa, for bringing me here first of all. So, the question that you ask is impact of youth. So, the question itself has an answer, like where we find the youth. So, when we talk about youth, the maximum time the youth, one youth spend is in social media. It is in Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Being my own self an YouTuber, I also run a Samajik News channel. So what we need to do today, like to engage them, is to make new contents, to make the best content that suits to the youth, to the young people. Apart from that, also, if I talk about the example of what we do in Youth Ke Bol, basically, so what we do, we made a WhatsApp chat board that is you report, and it was very good responses that we get from the youth. Also, what we use is basically the social media handles to get the information. Apart from that, also Google form, at the same time also Cerebral Monkey, etc., etc. So what we need to connect with them is there should be a crisp and short data, short contents by which we can easily connect them. We can go with pools like there are various pools in Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp that can easily connect us, and also we can engage the youth by their need, that they need, because if we bring something that is needful for the youth, definitely they are going to come in. But in the trend, being in the trend, connecting with youth at the same time, it should be crisp and short. Even if I talk about ALC, what we do is basically we use memes, and that meme is very easy to circulate, and people can easily connect with that. And yeah, that's it. What I want to do. In short, I can say it should be crisp, short, and it should be entertaining, as well as we should follow the trend. That's it.
Thank you, Saurabh. That's great. I think many of us are guilty of doing different methods that are much longer, sending out long emails and long surveys. And so, yeah, this tells us we need to rethink our approaches somewhat. So you've also, touched on, online work and technology, and sort of in that vein, I want to now move to going into technology a bit more. And so our last question for this round is for Erica. Erica Arya is the India head for Project Tech for Dev. She's got a background in software engineering, and she's worked both in the corporate and nonprofit sectors. And she's now focusing on digital transformation for NGOs. So this is great to hear from you on this topic, Erica. From your work working, with so many different social purpose organizations, what are examples of how NGOs can really use the data and insights that we're getting from communities to make their programs more effective?
Thanks, Asha, and thank you for having me on this panel. So we at Project Tech for Dev consider ourselves as technology partner for the social sector. And we've been working with around 90 plus NGOs across the tech and data initiatives that we run. And one of them is the WhatsApp chatbot platform, Glocal, which is being used by around 70 plus NGOs. And they're generally using this platform for a two-way communication, to establish that two-way communication with their end users, and majorly using it to share information, advisories, gathering feedback from the community, and even running assessments on it. So a lot of conversations happening, which is leading to a lot of data getting collected at an individual level, because chatbots work at one-on-one setup. So we are helping, the chatbot platform is helping the NGOs to analyze this gold mine of data and draw insights to improve their program design, content design, understanding the users a little bit better when it comes to how do they engage with technology, because the pandemic has actually accelerated our adoption of technology, and NGOs are still trying to understand how their end user is actually engaging with the different tools. I will cite here an example of how one of our NGOs, working in the agriculture space, designed the chatbot solution, got the data from it, used the insights that they got from the analyzed data, and then how did they tweak their program. So this NGO was working with smallholder farmers, and they ran a bot earlier in sharing. The purpose of the bot was to share advisory on farming practices to the farmers. Now, the bot wanted the farmers to enter what is their crop and what is their crop stage, and then create a calendar for sharing the advisories. That went really well. We had like 85% of the users, starting with their journey on the bot. But then when came the next bot, we got a little greedy, and we felt, let's also start, capturing more data from the user in terms of what is their location, and also their stage and their crop, and also knowing what is the category of the user, whether it is a farmer or an FLW or an extension worker. Now, when we added so much of content right in the beginning, we saw a clear dip in the number of users who were completing their flow. And that just came down from 85 from the previous bot to 55%. And this is what the data showed, that when you were asking so many questions to the user upfront and not adding much value to him or her at that point, that just led to a loss in interest. And hence, taking this data and analyzing it, we revised the flow again and just removing the location bit, trying to understand where the user is coming from, but getting back to asking the user, what is the crop for which the advisory is being sought? What is the crop state so that rightful advisories can be shared? And this led to, an increase in the users completing their flow. And it went from what was earlier a 55% to an 80% increase in the users. So yeah, so this is how we've seen data working for our partners.
Thank you so much. That's a very concrete example of data actually leading to something, an actual, measurable positive change. So we're going to move to our second round, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into some of these topics. And so with this next question, I'm going to go back to Verinder. And from your perspective, working with media, I want to look at and talk about behavior change. So how are you using storytelling for behavior change? And then how are you measuring engagement, attitudes, and perceptions of audiences?
Thanks, Sasha, for that. Also to Saurav's point about, keep it entertaining and trendy, like he said. So I think my point is going to talk to that very important point by Saurav as well. Because, we at BBC Media Action, we feel that it's not just enough to talk to the minds of your audiences. To change their behavior, you have to speak to their hearts, right? So when we're working on, topics like sanitation, gender empowerment, it's just very important to, bring out the right emotions in people and, talk to their hearts. Like I said, our challenge in sanitation, for example, was to, make fecal sludge such as important as a challenge as pollution right now is for people, right? So it wasn't easy because no one really cares about shit. So we had to walk this tight rope of balancing entertainment with the right dose of education, and research plays a very important part, right? So dramas are particularly effective when you're engaging people at an emotional level, and it helps you unpack these complex issues. But evaluating a drama or a story is never easy. So one of the things that we did was, of course, break down each and every episode arc that was related to multiple messages, and not just understand the knowledge, attitude, and practice indicators, but also get into the engagement of people with the show. And here I want to highlight that even before you test your tools with the people, it's very important to use the language that people use, right? So we've done a lot of cognitive interviews to understand what the language we should even use in our tools. So I think that's one thing that I'll definitely want to highlight. And then the other thing is pre-testing the programs is something that really helps you make everything within the acceptable construct of the society, right? So even if you're pushing the envelope on gender empowerment or norms, doing it within the acceptable construct is very, very important. And that's again a place where research really helps. Yeah, I just want to highlight these 2 points. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That's really, really helpful. And I'd like to go now a little bit more into what we were talking about before about community involvement and how we can lead that to positive change. And so, Anusha, I'd like you to take that question. I mean, can you give us an example again, like something concrete about how communities are involved and how at the end, once we have them involved in that MEL process, we actually get something positive and concrete that comes out of it?
Sure. So we have used this kind of community involvement as part of participatory MEL in a range of contexts. We've used it in also doing like exploring how participatory statistics works, in facilitating ground level panels. So in a range of things. So I'll just talk to you about one such example. This is from 2016, 2018, when we were working with communities that are vulnerable to forms of forced labor, child labor, and trafficking. And in one such community, we were working on issues that they had highlighted. It was a Mahadalit Basti, and they were looking at how to keep their children back in school because there was very high dropout. So as part of the process, initially, along with the community, they evolved what was it that they wanted to change? What were the problems because of which children were dropping out? They outlined the various reasons around that. And from that, they outlined a vision of what they wanted to achieve, what they specifically wanted to change, and how it would lead to children being kept in school. And based on that, they evolved certain indicators. So to give you some examples, some of the indicators were about their actions that would focus on the school and how it was functioning, whether classes were being held on time, whether the teachers were regular, whether there were children in the classroom, because often teachers are there, but then the children are out playing on the trees or outside. So what were these things that were there? And then the second thing, whether midday meal was being served. If it was, what was the quality? So they evolved these various indicators, and they also decided what would be the time frame for monitoring these actions that they were doing and the change. And similarly, they also looked at what kind of changes were happening in practices within the houses also. So were parents talking to their children about education? Were children sitting at home and also doing homework? Or was it only during going to school? And then there were also overarching things about identifying how many children in that community also engaged in work along with school, how many had dropped out completely, and linking it with various actions that they had planned, such as speaking to these families, trying to understand what challenges that they were facing, how they could be linked to entitlements that could actually support the families, to ensure that the children didn't have to go to work. So these were certain ways in which the tools were developed, and the community members also tried to use this over a period of every 3 months. They tried to get this data. It was not always easy, because initially there was a lot of resistance as to, we don't even know how to hold a pen. You want us to look at data, or you want us to look at numbers. But one thing that I just want to say was, towards the end of this project, when we were engaging, and one of the ladies, she said that, okay, so this wasn't so difficult. So this was something that I know how to do, and it was something that I could do. So that was also something that made us feel that, yes, change happens in this way, and it can be measured in this way.
Thank you, Anusha. Yeah, I mean, that's really fascinating that you got that kind of response, and you see that at the end of the day, you've developed this pathway to make that happen. But all the things you're talking about before, and what Verinder was talking about before, all these different ways, they take a lot of effort. They aren't easy. But I think what we're trying to say here is that, we need to challenge ourselves to keep going and finding these ways, because it is worth it, at the end of the day, because we can get these deeper changes and we can get more impact. So I'd like to now go to Erica and to talk about the role of technology when it comes to scale, because I think that that's something that comes up a lot. It's like tech is this potentially this kind of silver bullet. We can reach more people, and we've heard a few examples with the other panelists of what that is. I'd love to know from your perspective, like, really, what is the promise of tech, but also, like, what are some of the limitations?
Yeah, thanks. So I feel that technology plays a crucial role in scaling the participatory MEL approaches. I think it enables greater inclusivity, efficiency, and effectiveness when you're engaging with your stakeholders. It provides better data collection, analyzing information that is being collected, and then disseminating the findings. And when I say inclusivity, I mean that technology helps you overcome the geographical barriers that we have, and that allows you to engage with a diverse range of participants, which enhances the overall quality and representativeness of the data which is being collected during the process. Technology also leads to efficient data collection. You have mobile data collection applications, web-based surveys. So these tools enable real-time data collection, which is reducing the time and effort which would otherwise have been required. Technology, I feel it, once you've collected the data, technology also has the capability to analyze large volumes of data using advanced data analysis tools which are present now. Data visualization tools, ML algorithms, they all help analyze the complex data sets very efficiently. And I feel participatory MEL can leverage this to engage more stakeholders, to contribute towards the interpretation of this data, and then drawing actionable insights from it. Again, once we are doing so many evaluations, so much research happening, technology also provides an improved knowledge sharing platform. You have these online platforms, the webinars like this one, which is happening, which allows you to share reports and your learning materials. So this overall fosters collaboration, learning, and exchange of experiences among the stakeholders. So while technology offers significant benefits, and as you mentioned, we should not be overlooking the limitations also it brings through in terms of digital literacy or access to technology. So it's very important to strike a balance between the two to realize the full potential of participatory MEL at scale. And so there's taking up inclusivity. So we need to provide training and support to those who are unfamiliar with the technology, and also consider alternative methods of participation if your users do not have access to devices. Technology, when we say technology, we are saying that it is creating an enabling environment, no way saying that it has to replace the direct interaction and engagement that you're having with your stakeholders. It's very important to create those strong relationships and build that trust with the community and individuals. We acknowledge that technology-mediated data collection can have errors, so you need to have those checks and balances in place, triangulate the data from different sources so that you feel more confident about the data that you're collecting. So overall, I would say we would advocate a hybrid approach, a combination of technology and non-technology-based methods to address these limitations. So while use technology for data collection, analysis, visualization, but also integrate traditional participatory approaches where it is appropriate. Yeah.
Thank you, Erica. That's great. And I think that does echo with some of the other panelists we're talking about in terms of using different approaches to get to the heart of what people are thinking, feeling, doing, so we can take all of that and incorporate it back into a program to make it better. It can also be used for policy. And so that's what I'd like to ask. Turn a question over to Saurabh and look at this. We've been talking about all these different ways of getting this data, getting insights from communities. What can we do, like for young people, to ensure that the data and insights that we're getting from young people, so all the stuff we're getting from, you were talking about, all the things you're doing online and going where they are, how do we take all of this and use it to actually influence decision makers?
Whenever we talk about, policy makers, the very first thing comes in India, that is, the people who basically make policies are not young. So there only the gap comes in. If this is the policy maker and this is the young people, there is a gap between this. So when we connect both of them, then it will be the great initiative, to connecting the youth with policy making and what is the need of youth with the policy maker. So there the work of Youth Ke Bol basically comes. So what we are doing over here is we connect with youth, and we take surveys and collect data, and then what we do, we have just presented it in international planning, family planning program, where we have been share all the data about what the youth people need. Apart from that, also we are planning to talk with Ministry of Health, then Sexual Health Rights of Ministry, and different people, so that we can connect the bridge. And also there is one personal story that I would like to share, is why this is very important. I hope that will be connecting you. So what actually happened, before I started this organization, that is ELC. So I was working in an organization, and it was properly well settled, and I was getting everything very easily. So I came up with a project that was based on child sexual abuse. So I just given the proposal that let's do something on child sexual abuse and on something menstruation and periods. So they said it is a wide idea. We should not talk with people about this. It should be talk in real. Should not be openly talking, blah blah blah. So that ultimately forced me, to start my own organization and work for youth. And that is what we are doing in ELC also. We are engaging the youth to let them learn to create a better future, because it has become very difficult when there is there is something that you want to do, but just because of the age boundaries, you cannot do something like that. So that ultimately gives a bit kick also, we should do something what you actually want, what actually the youth need. Yeah, on that I can only say one thing, that let's connect the youth to the policymakers, or else let's make the young people policymakers. That's it.
Absolutely, that's great. Yeah, let's make the policymakers listen. And yes, we need to create spaces so young people are actually in those decision-making positions. So I think that's a huge message for all of us, all of us here. So thank you, Saurav, for that. And so, so with that, we now are moving into our last round of questions. So what I'd like to do is put the same question to all of the panelists. And what I'd like to do is look at collaboration. You know, we've been hinting at this and talking about this throughout, but you know, certainly one of the themes with Glocal is about collaboration. And it's beyond just saying, let's work together, but it's figuring out new ways of actually working together and creating spaces and platforms and all of that. So certainly with 10 to 19, you know, the aim is to work towards a shared understanding of MEL and also to have some collective platforms. So my question to all of you is, you know, what are your suggestions for how we can all work together for participatory MEL? How do we make this happen rather than working in silos? How do we actually all come together? So same question for all of you. And we will start with Verinder.
Right. Thanks, Asha. I think firstly, I just want to start by saying that I think there are numerous opportunities. All we need is, we all know that there are opportunities. I think Erica in her last answer actually covered a lot of, knowledge sharing, learning opportunities. So I think we all know it, we all understand it, but there has to be intent and I think proactive identification now of, working on these opportunities. I think one I would say is that, all of us are doing our own work on, some specific themes. Like I'm right now working on gender norms, on digital adoption. I'm sitting here in Indore, out for fieldwork, but my insights on gender norms are something that applies to, beyond my sector, right? Beyond digital adoption only. So I would love to share some of these findings. Maybe we can have like a working group, come up with some, tactical solutions rather than, the ideal ones really. But get started, right? I mean, I think it's about intent and just getting started, and then we'll figure out what's the ideal way. I think one is sharing those insights with each other so that we're not reinventing the wheel every time we're doing something on gender norms or, digital adoption. The other thing I would just want to say is that, maybe add questions to each other's surveys. I mean, specific to MEL, can we also do that? I know we're already, to Saurav's point, trying to we should make it short and not long, but can we again try to not go back to our audiences every time for different issues, right? Have opportunities where we can add on to each other's work. Yeah, I think these are the two things, and then share resources. Yeah, thanks
Verinder. Now let's go to Erica. Same question.
Yeah, thanks, Asha. So I think, yes, one, we are talking about collaboration at a higher level, but I think even within the organizations, similar things need to flow in. So one is like, we have to be we should have a shared vision when we are working to clear objectives and outcomes, and everyone's buy-in has to be there. They have to be aligned to the goals and the values that guide the collaborative effort, I would say. Then, as Virendra said, having a platform, where you can exchange your ideas, resources, coordinate these activities, that is very much needed. And co-creating, I would say, the framework and the indicators, involve your stakeholders in the design and development. I see even within organizations, MEL, I have seen like they would like not, maybe in some organizations, involve the other stakeholders. So if it's tech, if it's program I know is very much into creating because they have their program outcomes which have to be like measured, but I've seen like tech being left out as like being a support kind of a function in the organization. So I would say bring all the stakeholders together when you are designing and developing your MEL frameworks, the tools and the indicators. And then have those responsibilities very well distributed. You are clear on who's doing what, and based on their expertise and their capacity. And yes, definitely invest on capacity building of the group. That's very important so that we are all on the same page with respect to our skills and knowledge as much as possible. Yeah, this is what I would like to share.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think we often think of bringing stakeholders together at the beginning of a project about, the visioning and everything, but not necessarily through that kind of more granular process of what the MEL system will look like. So that's an interesting suggestion. So let's go to Anusha. What are your suggestions?
Yeah. So I think one of the things, like y'all have been talking about the platforms at the level of organizations, as well as cross learning amongst people who use MEL. So similarly, I would just think it would be useful to have a similar platform for community members also who have used MEL, for them to share their experiences and their challenges, because often the challenges that we as facilitators face would be very different from the challenges that people who are involved in this, when we talk about participatory MEL, what challenges they face. So it would be good to have like similar platforms, like a webinar or something that can bring together people who, like communities who have used MEL, to talk about their learnings. And it'll also be a great opportunity for to know about other themes. Like, so say someone is working on climate adaptive livelihoods and using MEL there, would know how gender and media action is working. So these kind of things would also help trigger ideas, and that's what keeps anything new going.
Thank you for that. And now, Saurav, to you. What are your suggestions for how we can work together?
So when we talk about collaboration, the word collaboration means something, teamwork, coming together, that we are diverse, we are connected with one person. That is our cause for which the whole team is working, every organization is working. So coming a bit more closer, like if I talk about young people and collecting the proper collaboration with young people, then again I will be raising the same point. It should be short, crispy, and it should be something entertaining as well. But yeah, I have another plan for it, that what we can do is that we can make an application where it is a bit futuristic. We can say we can make an application. I know there are people in the panelists who are very much working in tech, so I will request that you can help us on that. So the project is basically we can come together and make a proper platform where policymakers can come together and what they need from young people, and young people can come together and give their inputs. At the same time, young people, whenever, like as me, when I started my career in this field as a organization leader, then I face a lot, for getting funds, and even I face today also. So there should be a platform where people can come together, like whatever the need is in this sector. It can be stakeholders, can be funder, it can be policymakers, it can be young people. They all can come together and provide what the each other needs, because everybody's someone is supplier, and someone has the demand. So let's supply and demand go together, make an application, and connect each other perfectly. Even we can use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter as a big platform, like a group or WhatsApp group, where we can make small groups and bring people together. And also last thing but not the least is, yeah, we should collaborate with people, and yeah, we should collaborate with young people, and let's make an application where we can connect with the people. That's it.
Thank you so much. All of you, thank you so much. Those are really interesting responses. And I think you're all getting at a couple of things. I mean, it's being really intentional and going beyond, yes, we share in our work and we share in different ways and means, but let's come up with something that's more formalized or mechanized. Let's actually have platforms or apps or things that can make this happen. So this brings us to the end of our session. And I just really want to thank all of our wonderful panelists for sharing such rich insights in your experiences. We have so much respect for what you do every day, and we're very, very grateful for your time today. And just to very quickly recap, we've heard a few themes. If we're really serious about having communities be involved and creating solutions to meet their own needs, then we have to be ensuring that programs and policies have processes that are involving them from the start to the finish. And Anusha and Erica gave us some very practical ways of talking about MEL and taking MEL and keeping it with the communities, not just at the level of program managers. And Verinder gave us some really good ideas about how do we get creative how do we use creative formats, but that also give us very credible data, and how do we use storytelling to really unearth the changes in attitudes and things that we may not get from any other sources or any other ways of doing it. And of course, Saurav really brought home to us the point about meeting young people where they are, using the online world, being short, being crisp, right? And getting the decision makers to engage and, of course, getting young people to become the decision makers themselves. So we really hope that from all of this, you can take back some key insights and some recommendations, on what it actually takes to design these kinds of community-centered programs. They're not easy by any means, but we have some very specific things here that hopefully you can think about and move on. I think one thing we can all agree on is that it can't just be one organization or entity, leading this. It really has to be a collaborative. And so we really want to keep exploring and investing in these kind of platforms. The 10 to 19 team has developed an interactive tech platform, and it's primarily working with and catering for young people and youth-focused organizations. So, and the vision for this platform is to become a kind of primary hub for data aggregation and disseminating insights. So this is something where it's very much a work in progress, and we will want to keep you posted. And in the meantime, we're going to be sharing some resources on the chat. So please take a look at that. And just thank you, all of you, so much. Thank our wonderful panelists again, and the 10 to 19 organizers. Thank you, Glocal. And thanks all of you for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.